Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sofia Zarar. I am an assistant head teacher and I'm a Senko at a local high school in Manchester. I've been in education for over 25 years and I'm very passionate about raising awareness for special educational needs and disabilities. The aim of today's session is to raise awareness and to empower parents to be able to get the right support for their child so that they can make progress not just in their childhood but as they move on to adulthood as well.
Okay. सबसे पहले तो ईद मुबारक to all of you. Belated Eid Mubarak. It's not been long though. Or lots of ladies, they've been asking me to throw an Eid party, but I thought because there are lots of parties and concerts going on, so we need to get back to work. And we've not had session in Ramadan, so after a break we are coming back. And we also had a big party anyway, International Women's Day. So I feel that it's important to get back to work and get back to the normality. So welcome to all of you today on a nice sunny day. And I would like to introduce you to Coffee with the CMM, ladies only session, of course, as you know. It's number 18. This is our 18th seminar, alhamdulillah, within 2 years. And obviously including the holidays, summer holidays and Christmas break. So I've got, I'd love to introduce Mrs. Sofia Zarar. She is assistant head at a local school, assistant head at Senko at a local school, mashallah. And Sofia ji is going to present a talk on SEND, as you can see, special educational needs and disabilities. Important topic, very crucial, and I feel because many of our families in our community, they have special needs children, and they need a lot of support, and they're not aware of the support is available out there. So that's why we arranged this session to help the community. So I will hand the mic over to Sofia. Please welcome Sofia with a round big applause.
Very much, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. It's lovely to see everyone here today. Can I just check everyone can hear me okay? Yeah. Hear me at the back as well? Yeah. Okay, lovely. So as Rosanna very kindly introduced me, I am an assistant head teacher and I'm a Senko, so I look after inclusion at my local high school in Manchester. I have been in education for over 25 years, so I've seen lots and lots of changes. The topic of special educational needs and disabilities is one of my biggest responsibilities, and it's one of my passions as well, because we all should believe that every child has the right to succeed, every child has the right to a future, every child has the right to achieve their potential in school as well, regardless of what their needs are and regardless of what their background is. So this topic is huge, it's really, really big. So what I've tried to do in this session, and I'll go through the aims shortly, is just to kind of condense, give you a brief introduction into what special educational needs is, and just to obviously enlighten and people in the family, people in the community can get support for their child. So we might be in the audience have people who have additional needs, who have family members with additional needs. We're all part of the community. And it's really important that we empower ourselves as individuals so that we can support not just our own families, but other people in the community as well who might be struggling and who might be having difficulties with their children. So hopefully, during the course of the session, we'll give you pinpointers as to how you can kind of access support in schools. I'm doing this presentation against a backdrop of a national picture in the UK where special educational needs is very, very high profile, but it's got very, very negative press at the moment. Schools are underfunded, local authorities are underfunded, there aren't enough resources to go around, there aren't enough places in special schools, there aren't enough teachers with kind of specialist awareness, and that is something that we've always been fighting against, quite frankly, in all the time that I've been in education. But what we need to do in this session is, regardless of all of that, have a positive attitude and just be able to know how to get the support that we need for children who have additional needs. During the course of the presentation, if you want to stop me at any time and ask questions, please feel free to do so. We're aiming at about half an hour, and then at the end of the session we can have question and answer, or if you want to speak to me individually just about any issues relating to SEN, then please feel free to do so. And special educational needs, which is actually very, very empowering for families and for parents as well, to make sure that they get the right support. How does it impact on children? And then crucially, how can parents access that really, really important support that they need in schools? Okay, so I'm going to ask a quick question. Have we got any teachers in the audience? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, excellent. So we've got teachers in the audience who obviously might know a little bit about special educational needs. When we're talking about special educational needs, I'm focusing particularly on school-aged children. So in 2015, the SEN Code of Practice defines special educational needs as a child or young person that has special educational needs if they have a learning disability which calls for special educational provision that is additional to and different from others in the classroom. So a child might have a difficulty for a short while. That doesn't necessarily mean they've got a definition of special educational needs. Special educational needs is long term. It's something that will impact that child for quite a long time in their life, and it's important to bear that in mind when you're thinking about support. So the legislation, there's loads of legislation. The Code of Practice basically goes from 0 to 25, so not only children are supported, but as you go into your adult life as well, if you have a special educational need, there is support available, formally up until the age of 25, but also after that as well. And all of this legislation is based on underpinning that the child is at the start of the legislation was to have high aspirations for everybody. Every single child should be able to achieve what they want to, and therefore everybody should have high aspirations. And I think within the community that I know quite well and that we've known over the years as well, I think there's definitely more and more acceptance in terms of children who have additional needs deserve to have the best possible support as well. Okay. So, in terms of equality, some of you may know about the Equality Act. The Equality Act underpins everything really to do with special educational needs. And no school, no nursery, no college or further institution should be discriminating against children because of their needs. So it's really important that the equality duty is a duty on all public sector organisations, including schools as well. And in schools, you have a governing body who look after all the teachers and the way that the school is run. And in madrasas, it will be the same as well. There will be an organisation, the leadership at the top who kind of look after all the classes and how things are run as well. And in any kind of even voluntary sector organisations that do activities for children, there is a duty to make sure that you meet the needs of the children within your organisation. So there's lots of protection for families, there's lots of protection for children according to the law as well. I don't talk about legislation much usually. If parents are struggling, it's really important that you remind them that there is legislation. So if you're having a bit of a battle with a school or you're not being able to get the support that you want, then you know that you have rights as a parent to be able to kind of back you up as well. Okay, and then finally, and this is a crucial bit as well, the Children and Families Act in 2014 really put emphasis on the voice of the parent, the voice of the family and the voice of the child. This is really, really important because as parents, we know our child the best, and while schools see them every single day, we know that if there's a difference or if they're struggling. So that legislation also underpins the fact that parental voice is very, very important, and it gives you that kind of road into having those conversations with schools and being able to get the right support for your child as well. Okay, so in terms of special educational needs and disabilities, there are different categories of need. So there are 4 categories of need, and they have lots of different needs associated with them. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes just going through them, because if I just said to the audience, what do you think a special educational need or disability is? Would anyone be able to give me an answer or share what they think it is? No one brave enough at the moment. Okay, we'll go through the different definitions, and I can share some examples as well. It's very, very broad. There are 4 broad areas of need. So the first broad area of need is called cognition and learning, and then we have communication and interaction. Then we have sensory and physical needs, and then we have social, emotional, and mental health needs. So that's a massive bracket, and it covers lots and lots of students. And that might have a communication need. There are students who are very, very able, who might also have a sensory need. So it covers a lot of abilities. You can't equate special educational needs with a child who might not achieve something, because there's a broad range and all children can achieve very, very well if their needs are met and if the right support is in place. Okay, so cognition and learning. Cognition is all to do with how the brain works and how children process information, how children retain information, how a child in a classroom understands what the teacher is saying. So children with cognition and learning difficulties can have difficulties with working memory. They might not be able to remember what the teacher is saying. They might need instructions repeating over and over again. They might need extra time to support them and help them in class. And they are all the things that can be done normally in any classroom by any teacher. So there's a couple of things here. Specific learning difficulties, so dyslexia and dyscalculia. Dyslexia is to do with the way that children difficulties, and then the biggest category in this is moderate learning difficulties, and that's students who have quite significant difficulties with their comprehension, so they'll really struggle in a classroom with what the teacher is trying to tell you. And then right at the severe end, we have profound and multiple learning difficulties, which is students who might really, really struggle with all aspects of learning and might need special, very, very specialist provision in terms of their education. So moving on to communication and interaction. So communication is key, and this area of need, even if a child has other difficulties, this usually underpins a lot of what they do. So a lot of what their needs are. So speech and language needs is all related to communication. And one of the growing areas of need at the moment is for children who have autism, which is related to social communication difficulties. So this is a growing area of need at the moment in the UK and across Manchester. Okay, so these slides are slightly flipped round the wrong way. So this is sensory and physical needs. So anything to do with a hearing impairment, a visual impairment, or any physical disability. And there are more and more children who are secondary school age over the last few years as well. And then also increasing at the moment are the number of children who are suffering from mental health difficulties at the moment. That includes anxiety and low mood, and also thinking about attention hyperactivity disorder, which is ADHD. This is a massive growing area of need, and there's lots of long waiting lists at the moment as well in terms of children being diagnosed. So the key message really to you as a community and to families and to parents is the earlier the intervention, the more support you can get, the quicker you can get into school, the quicker and the more likely it is that your child will get the help and the support that you need. Any questions on those at the moment? Okay, so how do we think that having a special educational need impacts on children? What does anybody think? I should have said at the beginning, I am going to ask the audience questions. Obviously, I'm in teacher mode, so how do you think this impacts children? What kind of things might we see in a classroom?
Children are very disruptive.
Yeah.
They don't concentrate.
Yeah.
Focus is an issue, so it does impact them in various ways.
Absolutely, yeah. So you imagine if you're in a classroom and you're struggling with comprehension difficulties, the teacher's going too fast, the teacher doesn't make any adaptations, you don't understand the instructions, you can't sit still, you lose your concentration, you are going to really, really struggle in that classroom, absolutely. So, a positive thing. And children with special educational needs have many, 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 many strengths. So in my area of work, the first thing I always look for is, what are the strengths of this child? What can we use? How can we work on the strengths of this child to be able to get the right support for them? And that will be the first conversation I have with a parent when they come to see me about a difficulty that they might be having. Let's harness the strengths, let's see what works really, really well, and then let's look at those difficulties and how we can address them and what kind of things we can put in place. Okay, there are 200,000 children with special educational needs and disabilities in schools in the UK. Is that true or false?
True.
True? True, True. So we think there are 200,000 children. Okay. So that's actually false.
So more than that?
There are over, at the last government statistics by the Department for Education, there are over 1.6 million children in the schools in the UK who have an identified special educational need. So that doesn't include those whose needs haven't already been identified. And that number has increased from the previous year in 2022. And overall, there's about 18.4% of children in schools in the UK who have an identified special educational need. Okay, next one. Make sure I don't reveal the answer first. Okay, so the most common type of need is physical disabilities. Is that true or false?
False.
False, correct, yeah. So that is false. The most common type of need is autism or speech and language needs, and this is a growing area of need. The number of children who have been identified who have social interaction difficulties with or without a diagnosis is growing and growing in Manchester, and it's growing and growing in the UK. And the unfortunate thing is that once a need has been identified through school, the pathways for support and diagnosis, there are waiting lists, of over 2.5 years to get a diagnosis for a child for something like autism or ADHD. So that's why the support that you get from school is really, really important, because they're identified quicker. Boys do tend to get I wouldn't say a diagnosis quicker because the waiting lists are the same, but girls, and my experience is I work in a girls' school, and I've worked in a girls' school for many, many years. My experience is that girls are really, really good at masking their difficulties. Girls can assume, they can copy, they can pick up strategies, they can do what the person next to them is doing to fit in, to get the help. But what happens is they manage that very, very well at primary school, but the transition to high school becomes incredibly difficult for those children, because you're going from a very small, nurturing primary school to a huge environment with many social rules, with different routines, 16, 17 different teachers, big buildings, and it becomes more and more difficult to manage that. So that's why girls' needs, particularly in terms of social interaction, are identified a lot later, which means diagnosis and possibly support will come a lot later as well. Okay, so that is also false. Double the number of boys who've got a diagnosis with autism. And I suppose if you think about the reason why, sometimes the way that boys express themselves might be a little bit more boisterous, they might be a little bit more frustrated, you might see more behavioural difficulties, whereas girls tend to internalise their difficulties. And those, as we mentioned before, those behaviours, because they're so explicit, they get noticed more. They might get noticed more by their parents, but they'll certainly get noticed more by schools as well. And that's a thing that tends to get picked up quicker, whereas girls internalise a lot, and that's why sometimes there's a delay in identifying their needs as well. Okay, any questions at that point? Okay. So what we're going to move on to now is just think about, in terms of school, how can you get the support that you need? So just for somebody who's been in education for a very, very long time, I would say with all the schools that I've worked with, I've only worked in 2 schools in 28 years, but I can firmly say to you that the majority of schools want to do the very, very best by their children, regardless of the fact that there aren't enough resources. Every school wants to do the very best by its children, particularly for children who have special educational needs as well. And most schools should have an open door policy where you can contact them if there's a difficulty, or if there's a family member, a mother, an auntie, a grandmother, you're concerned about your child, that you should be able to contact the school. And parent voice is really, really strong, and there's lots of support for parents across Manchester as well. And this quote is just from an anonymous parent who really struggled to get a diagnosis for their child, an education and healthcare plan, which is for children who have really, really... But be proactive, be persistent, and don't give up. That's really, really important. So just over the next few minutes, we're just going to look at how you can, as a parent or family member, get support for your child in school. So primary schools and secondary schools work slightly differently. So in each school, in every school there's a SENCO, so a Special Educational Needs Coordinator. That's my role in my school. So that is really your first point of contact if you are worried about your child and you think that they've got an additional need. Now in primary schools, I think very much so there's a bit of an open door kind of policy to the classroom teacher as well. So I would always advise that if you're worried about your child, that the classroom teacher is the first person that you speak to. However, you should be able to get an appointment to see the SENCO. I'm saying that, but I know how busy my school is as well, and I have a big team that help me and support me to see parents. But that really, the SENCO is the first person that you should be able to contact if you're concerned about your child, or if you've got any issues in terms of you think there might be something that is more of a specialised identified need. Each school, and I'll come on to this in a minute, has something called a SEN information report. They have to publish that on their website every year, and it has to be updated. In that SEN information report, that tells you how schools identify need, how they support, what interventions are in place, and how you can contact the school, and the contact details for the SENCO. Any school in the country, go into the website and just type in SEN information report. That will show you all the information that the school have on how they support children with an additional need. It's really important because I publish mine every year. I have to make sure that everything in there is correct, and everything we're saying in there, because it's published, that we do if a parent approaches. You don't have to just request a meeting with your classroom teacher. If you think it's a need, then make sure you see the SENCO. There might be an assistant SENCO. If you're struggling, contact the head teacher. The head teacher will always respond and should always give you the right kind of guidance. At the end of the day, the other thing I always say to parents when they come to see me is, you know your child best. You know them better than anybody. And you know what difficulties they're having. You know what they're like when they come home from school. So use that information, share that information, request the support that you think that they will need, and find out what else the school can give you as well. And schools should be willing to listen to parents, because at the end of the day, you know your child best and you know what you think will work for them as well. And parents should also be involved in any plans of support. So anything that the school decides to put into place to support your child, they should inform you about, they should communicate that to you, and there should be regular review meetings. If anything is done, like an intervention, or they might have additional support, they might be referred to a speech and language therapist, that's when the process starts. Teacher, I have to make sure, as I'm teaching, I change the way that I'm doing it in a way that everybody can understand. So the classroom is the most important place where children's needs will be met. Any additional interventions are secondary to that. So if we can't get it right as teachers in the classroom, any additional interventions aren't going to make a difference. So that's why the relationship that you have in primary school with the class teacher is very, very important. And you can gain that information, you can gather the information, and they become part of the process at primary school to work with the SENCO to try and identify the need as well. So I always come back to this, and I always tell, when I'm training in my school as well, we always say that adaptive teaching is the first response to any child with an additional need. What you do as a teacher for that child is really, really important. So that relationship with the teacher is really important as well. And then in schools, there are many things that schools can do that aren't huge, big things that have to be very, very different. And they're called reasonable adjustments, and they're part of the Equality Act. And these are reasonable things that you can ask your school to do if your child has different issues, perhaps to do with their handwriting, perhaps to do with sensory issues. So, for example, sensory issues, they might wear headphones, they might leave the lesson a few minutes early to avoid the busy corridors. There might be issues around uniform and things like that you could adapt. So there's very small things that schools can do that are quick and easy wins that can help to support your child as well. Okay, and the other piece of advice I would give as well is that if you are struggling and you do think your child has an additional need, seek support from your GP, whatever that need may be, particularly if it's to do with social, emotional and mental health, or if it's to do with social communication and interaction. Your child may have a medical need, they may have diabetes, they may have epilepsy, you will have medical professionals that are working with you on a regular basis. Gather that information, bring it to the school, share that information so a plan can be drawn up using all the support that's available for that child. And if you're struggling and you don't feel confident in approaching a school, take somebody with you. I'm looking at Rubina and the times that we've kind of joined together to support our children or other children in the community. Sometimes it's just that it can be overwhelming talking to schools sometimes. It can be overwhelming making that first kind of point of contact, raising this concern. Take somebody with you that you feel comfortable with that can support you with that. And schools should always be open to that because making the family feel comfortable and having an open door policy is really, really important as well. Okay, if your child is identified as having a special educational need, they should be added to the SEND register and you should be informed about that. And there are different stages of the SEND register. For students that SEND support, the majority of their needs can be met within the classroom or with some additional interventions. If your child has a significant need that they may need long-term support for, that will carry on throughout their life, then the school may consider applying for an education and healthcare plan. Now, that in itself is a very big topic, and I can't go into it in much detail at the moment. But if anyone external agency support, there are different agencies that can support your child. So educational psychologists, speech and language therapists, there are specialist teachers for children who have dyslexia. Not all schools have them, but they might have access to support programs that they can put in place as well. Child, adolescent and mental health services who can support children who are having difficulties with emotional dysregulation or communication difficulties. Schools can do referrals. Referrals can also come through GPs, but the majority of referrals for children with social interaction difficulties at the moment are coming from schools. And there are many specialist schools. Specialist schools obviously have specialist staff who can support children in schools as well. So the key message is really just ask what the school can offer. Look at that SEN information report and see what they're saying they can offer so that you can access the report. So I've already been through the SEND information report. That is available on the school's website. If any of you have children in school or grandchildren in school, after this session, go onto the school's website and see if you can find it because it has to be there. It's a legal requirement that we have it, and it shares all the information in terms of how you can get support for your child. The other thing that a school should do, the local authority has something called a local offer, and the local offer lists all the support in place. So for example in Manchester or in Stockport, in terms of all the schools that are available, but any kind of groups that are available to support children who have additional needs. There's voluntary sector organisations on there. So it's a massive directory of support for families who have additional needs. And not many families know about that, but it is a school's duty to make sure that they publish that as well. The contact for Stockport and Manchester I have put at the end of this PowerPoint as well. The independent provider of special education advice, you can get in touch with them and you can seek support. And every local authority has a parent support group, and it's usually called SENDIAS. So I've put some contact details at the end of this PowerPoint as well. There's one for Manchester, there's one for Stockport, there's one for Cheshire East. I know the Manchester one very well. I don't know the Stockport one as well because I don't work in Stockport. But they are an independent advice service who can help you to navigate the systems in terms of, excuse me, in terms of SEND and get the right support. They can advise you on what kind of things you can say in meetings, what information you can take to meetings, what questions you could ask as well. So I always advise parents to contact SENDIAS as well, because they are a very, very useful group to have in the community. Excuse me. Okay, so we are just about coming to the end. Just to summarise really, like I've said throughout the presentation, as families you know your children best and you know what you think will work for them, and not all schools provide everything in terms of interventions. All schools have got their own resources, all schools have got their own specialisms and what they can provide and what they can support. But the biggest thing I would say is make sure you approach the school and you develop that relationship with the school so that it's co-production and it's a joint working relationship with school in terms of getting the support that you need. And then finally, my final point, just thinking about us as a community. Special educational needs is really, really important. I said right at the beginning, it's important that there's acceptance, we embrace children with special educational needs. As a community, we galvanise and harness to kind of talk about the positives so that these children get the very, very best out of their life. And as we say, this is not just about one person, it truly takes a whole village to raise a child. And as a community, that's what we should be thinking about doing.
We were finding difficult to diagnose which one is which the child from which, except after autism. Autism very clear.
Yeah.
I got one child autism.
Yeah.
And first of all, the parents, they not help that much as it's in the state school.
Yeah.
They hide.
Yeah.
We do it when we complain to head teacher has meeting with their parents.
Yeah.
But most of them, they are not saying, no, my child is okay.
So
no,
parents don't want
they
to
deny
share.
it.
Yeah.
And this becoming big responsibility for the teacher because they denying, we don't know. Then we try our best to teach them like normal children, but we're finding they have no very self-confidence.
Yeah.
But autism is very clear.
Of course. Yeah.
Because they don't settle, they move around, they make funny noises, and we know that one.
Yeah.
But other ones, we came here to learn how can we do, because they're not helping, and the head teacher not specialized on this things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point that you raised, Gular, and myself, Gular and Ravina used to run a madrasa many years ago, and the thing that we did, and you'll remember, when parents started, we used to meet with the parents and we used to ask lots of questions, but we used to find out any information about any support that they were having in school, any difficulties that they were having, and how we could support them in school. And then we used to liaise with you as teachers to kind of say, well, try these strategies, and you used to try different things with them. So it's difficult for me. Obviously, CMA is a really reputable organisation, and over the years, they've done amazing things to develop the madrasa side of it as well. I think with things like that, it always has to start from the top. And I know I was speaking to you earlier on, and you were saying that you've attended some courses on different areas of special educational needs. I think it's really hard for parents. For some parents it's really hard. They about acceptance. Nobody wants somebody to say to them, we can't teach your child here, or your child is too difficult for us to manage. And we've certainly been in that situation before. But I think if you're, in terms of whoever runs the madrasa side of it and the lessons, it's really their kind of responsibility to be working with the parents and just have that open relationship. I do know, I think at CMA I have seen advertised, is it a monthly or does it happen every couple of months, kind of like an open morning for children, for parents and families with special educational needs, or maybe I've seen that somewhere else. But you're nodding. It is a CMA, isn't it? Yeah.
They've recently started it.
Recently, yeah. So maybe that's the first starting point, really. If CMA have opened that kind of a venue, maybe parents will feel more comfortable about kind of communicating. But certainly when we finish at the end, I can talk to you both about strategies and things like that. And I was saying that I'm more than happy to share strategies that will be, because obviously it's very difficult, isn't it, in that kind of small setting, if you don't have a full understanding of their needs, to be able to know how to kind of work with them.
Number of children.
Yeah.
I have about 18, 19
Yeah.
children in each class. It's like status school actually, it's more similar.
Yeah.
But the thing is more responsibility for teachers, a lot responsibility.
It is, yeah.
And I also feel, I feel sad, you know, when
Yeah.
as a child finding difficult, very easy to teach clever children, normal children, but when you're covering this type of children,
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
I think as a teacher, obviously, when you're in the system, you have a lot of training. So
We do have
we have a lot of training in terms of special educational needs. I'm not sure at CMA what the level of experience is or what kind of training that you have access. It's really good to hear that you've been signposted to certain kind of training, which I think is really good. And it's as teachers, there's a lot about empowering ourselves as well.
We do have too many trainings actually.
About SEND.
No, generally everything.
Yeah.
But coming to the points,
Yeah.
how to deal with it,
Yeah.
we don't know.
Okay.
That's,
I mean, that's something that I'm happy to work with both of you on. We can have a little chat, we can exchange details afterwards. I'm more than happy to work with you or offer support and strategies, because I know in this session I wasn't really able to talk about strategies, but I'm more than happy to work with you both to kind of look at different ways to meet the need in the classroom as well. So thank you for the question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सोफिया, थैंक यू सो मच सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन के लिए। मैं उर्दू में बात करूँगी क्योंकि इंग्लिश में बात हो गई है। तो जो सिस्टर ने क्वेश्चन किया मैं इसी को आगे लेके जाती हूँ। उनका एक्चुअली मेन ये था कि हमारी साउथ एशियन कम्युनिटी मोस्टली, ये मैं उनको टारगेट नहीं कर रही, लेकिन ये मेरी अपनी केस स्टडी जो मेरी है और पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस, कि हम लोग हाइड करते हैं क्योंकि प्राइमरी स्कूल में भी जो स्कूल है सून ये आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं कि ये बच्चा थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है, तो वो पेरेंट्स से पूछते हैं कि अगर आपकी ऑथराइजेशन हो तो हम इसको सेंड करते हैं NHS के थ्रू डायग्नोसिस के लिए, और पेरेंट्स एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते, नहीं ये हमारा बच्चा ठीक है। प्राइमरी तक तो टीचर्स जो होते हैं वो उसका बिहेवियर जैसे तैसे करके कंट्रोल कर लेते हैं, लेकिन मेन इशू जो यूके में है वो है हाई स्कूल, जो फर्स्ट ईयर ऑफ ईयर 7, लेकिन सेम हाई स्कूल में भी पेरेंट की ऑथराइजेशन के बगैर कुछ भी नहीं होता। तो ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता कि अभी ये सेंड काम कर रही है, बहुत सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, फंडिंग है, सब कुछ है, रिसोर्सेज भी काफ़ी हैं, लेकिन पेरेंट्स के लिए क्यों नहीं कुछ ऐसा किया जाता कि पेरेंट्स को अवेयरनेस दी जाए कि दिस इज बेनिफिट फॉर योर ओन चिल्ड्रन।
नहीं, सही बात है आपकी, क्योंकि हम भी पहले करते थे अपने स्कूल में, पेरेंट फोरम होता था, तो हम पेरेंट्स को बुलाते थे एजुकेट करने के लिए कि स्पेशल एजुकेशनल नीड्स क्या है। ये वेरी मच डिपेंड करता है स्कूल के ऊपर, एंड एक्सेप्टेंस एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है, स्पेशली हमारी कम्युनिटी में। आप अपना एग्जांपल दे रही हूँ, मैं आपको ये कह सकती हूँ कि मेरा फीलिंग ये है कि मोर एंड मोर हमारी कम्युनिटी में एक्सेप्टेंस हो रही है आहिस्ता आहिस्ता, एंड मगर इन सिस्टम्स को नेविगेट करना बहुत मुश्किल है। जो सपोर्ट भी मिलेगा आपको उसको to try and get that is very, very difficult.
But so is there any way, like without parent authorization, can they be assessed?
ये डिपेंड करता है। Obviously, अगर मैं assess करना चाहती हूँ किसी बच्चे को, I have to get permission from the parents.
Yeah, that's.
So मगर schools में ये होता है कि at the very, very basic level आप assessments कर सकते हैं। जैसे मिसाल के तौर पे ये 7 शुरू होती है और हम लोग cognitive ability test करते हैं सारे ये 7 के साथ। उसके अंदर से हम उनको एनालाइज करते हैं, हम देखते हैं कि अगर कोई बच्चों में कोई कमी है तो फिर हम इंटरवेंशंस करते हैं, मगर पेरेंट्स को बताना होता है। वी कांट डू एनीथिंग विदाउट रियली गेटिंग द पेरेंट्स सपोर्ट। मगर ये मैं तो कहती हूँ कि एक लिहाज से ये स्कूल का काम है कि आप कॉन्फिडेंस डालें पेरेंट्स में, ताकि वो आ सकते हैं आपके पास और वो कंफर्टेबल फील करें। उनको ये नहीं होता फील कि नहीं मेरे बच्चे के साथ कुछ हो रहा है या कुछ अच्छी बात नहीं है। ये बड़ी बात है स्कूल के ऊपर कि आप वो डेवलप करें वो रिलेशनशिप स्कूल पेरेंट्स के साथ, ताकि वो कंफर्टेबल फील करें मतलब फैमिली के साथ। और मैं इसलिए ये कर रही हूँ ताकि कम्युनिटी को भी पता चले कि ये जो चीज़ें हैं ना, किसी को डायग्नोज हुई है ऑटिज्म, कोई डिस्लेक्सिक है, किसी को फिजिकल डिसेबिलिटीज है, एज अ कम्युनिटी हमें एक्सेप्ट करनी चाहिए, एज अ कम्युनिटी को हमें प्रमोट करनी चाहिए इस चीज़ को, ताकि वो फैमिलीज के अंदर ये फीलिंग ना हो. So I think that's the important thing really. There are support groups within Manchester. Our Charity Resources Board, their funding board there. There's been a lot of cuts, and I think just level there were groups for our support for stuff there. It's not as much as it was in previous years. Manchester Parent Carer Forum is a big source of support, and lots of parents go there as well. But I think वो काफ़ी मतलब कुछ families के लिए फिर भी मुश्किल होता है, मगर मैं तो कहती हूँ कि just go to school, talk to them.
I wanted to ask, when is that CMA event? When is it?
I think they've put out a. Are you on their list? Do you receive their notifications? Okay. I mean, the next time it comes up, I could possibly post it on the CMM group.
Okay.
Or if you just get in touch with CMA and get yourself added to that, because then anything going on, you'll find out.
And I think anything like that, it's important as a mum or as a family member. You go to events like that and you can speak to people who are going through a similar situation with you. The journey for parents who have a child with special educational needs is tough. It's really, really hard. You know, the day-to-day lived experience for parents as well is really, really hard. You know, they speak of frustration, they speak of just difficulties with disappointments, with support that they can't get, with what they think their families are thinking about their child. It's really, really difficult. To speak to like-minded parents from the community is really, really important. So I think what CMA have done and what they've started to do is a really, really good starting point. And जो भी अगर आप इस situation में हैं कि आपके बच्चे के साथ difficulty है, आप वहाँ पे जाएं, आप parents के साथ बात कर लें ताकि आपको थोड़ी सी तसल्ली भी मिले कि मुझे support मिल सकती है. So it's a really good thing that CMA are doing.
I think मदरसा में जैसे अब आप लोगों का IEPs होता है और early health plan होता है, तो मदरसा have some kind of special plan for them as well. Few mosques मुझे पता है कि activities with the especially ADHD, to make those children safe and focus is quite difficult. So the mosque they have a special group for that.
And I mean, you know, I don't work with CMA, but previously when we used to run our madrasa, we did used to look at children with additional needs. And I think you had an organisation के साथ depend करता है. मुझे बड़ी खुशी हुई है सुन के कि मदरसा ये कर रहे हैं और इस issue को वो मतलब लेके जा रहे हैं in a positive way and acknowledge कर रहे हैं.
Ignore them, and there is a lot of incidents, misbehaving, and because if they don't understand their needs, so they don't treat them like a normal child. Punishment,
Or like a naughty child.
so the punishment is the worst thing for the
Absolutely, So, no, that's really good.
I mean, when we were running our madrasa, we had lots of children, and there was a few, as you know, we had very small classroom numbers, didn't we? We were like 4 or 5 special needs identified by us. We were not told by the parents. Parents were in denial all the time, as you know, as well. But we identified it as the running of the madrasa, which kids need more attention, which were a bit naughty, and that's really basically what they've got to identify as well. The parent will never admit. And I think the child is already having difficulty with other issues and with making them learn another language. It's really difficult. They can read the Quran in English as well. So let's focus on that. Don't put too much burden on that child. And that's why in madrasas and in mosques, you guys are having difficulties until they do a one-to-one. Or they
Which is not always possible in a madrasa situation.
But the parents should have you come to the house, like we used to have one-to-one. Remember, some parent allowed us to give you the extra help. So it's not fair on the child and the teacher.
As well, from parents, sometimes you perhaps don't share because you know, आप चाहते हैं कि आपका जो बच्चा मदरसे जाए, क्यों ना जाए? They should be, they're entitled to. वो जाएं, वो बाकी बच्चों के साथ वो पढ़ें, वो कुरान शरीफ पढ़ें, and you know, they learn surahs and everything. Some children with additional needs might cope with that very well and might be able to do it. But for some children, it might be better that those kind of classes are maybe more the Islamic studies, stories of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those kind of things to engage them and to look at it in a different way. So I think it's parental expectations, managing that as well. And some parents are genuinely kind of quite worried about what people will think, I think, which is something as a community I keep on saying that we have to, we have to break that kind of idea.
The autism child with me, and even the head teacher asked us, if teachers cannot cope, tell me, they will take her, I don't need them to come. But we feel sorry for him. And the parent says, as he said to one, because she doesn't want it. She said he enjoys coming to mosque. He loves to come to mosque. That's the most important for us.
And I think, we've got to, again, I'm not affiliated with any mustard. I have previous experience with Rabina, and we would have thought that we were kind of highly inclusive, but thinking about taking a child out because they're not behaving, you think about, you go back to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how accepting he was, how he advocated the inclusion of everybody. You think of his companions and how he promoted them, he kind of, absorbed everything and everybody in every shape and form. So as a madrasa, as a mosque, then really we should be looking at ways of adapting, like I've talked about mainstream adaptive teaching. How can we adapt what we do in a madrasa to meet the needs of the child? The child shouldn't be fitting into the way that a school works. The school should be adapting to absorb that child, so in whatever way they can fit into that environment.
Yeah, because with our child, he's autistic as well, so I really want him to start learning like that, but it's so difficult.
It is, and I think you just got to do it in a way that for your son it works, whether that's a slow introduction to it through, there are lots of different ways. There are audios that you can use at home, there's online kind of things that you can use as well, and you very much should be wanting him to do that. And it's about finding the right way for him. It might not be that at the moment he's able to cope with the madrasa, because that's a different learning environment to perhaps his school, but there may be other ways you can introduce him to learning about Islam until he's ready to be able to perhaps go into a madrasa.
Give them a
time.
Sorry, you were going to ask another question.
Yeah. What's the best way to try and get him to start reading, slowly? And he's 6, which I don't know.
He's 6.
Just turned 6 on the 14th of March.
And is he in year 1?
Yeah.
Year 1?
Yeah.
Does he get support at school?
Yeah, he does.
Is he reading at all? Can you recognise letters or anything like that?
No.
Not yet.
He can only say the odd words here and there.
I would use visuals. Key visuals for children who have communication and speech and language needs are the best thing really. And you can use them right up to kind of high school. But key visuals, any visual resources to get him to kind of just recognise maybe images, pictures.
We call them the PECs.
Yeah, the PECs, you can use the PECs as well, but anything like that can, rather than getting him to kind of read and sound out words, but so that he can look at it from memory, it's sight memory, so he can see a picture associated with the word and then say it, and that's a really good way of building up that kind of word bank as well. It will be slow, but it's a better way than perhaps trying to introduce too much to do with phonics or anything like that. Again, I'm secondary, not so much primary, but I do know primary schools do use PECs, and visuals are really, really important for children who are trying to kind of learn to read.
Because we've got the actual cards at home, but that's for English stuff like drink and stuff like that.
I was just going to say the next thing.
Walk and that.
World of
But
Islam.
we need it for for Islam. That's what I want to start doing.
You might be able to get that sort of thing. Check on.
I'll have a look. I've got a couple of kind of links to resources for Islamic studies and for the basic, just for the alphabet as well. So I'll have a look, and I can, if you want to share either your number or an email address, I can share some links with you.
Please.
Yeah, of course I will.
Excuse me,
Yes, of course I will.
What does
You
your
know
child go to?
The word masking.
So as you said as well, a lot of kids do masking. But how the school or वो कैसे identify करते हैं ये masking है या ये autism है या ADHD? क्योंकि अभी जैसे मेरा बेटा है उसने अपनी ADHD को कंट्रोल कर लिया, लेकिन जो हिस्ट्री जो everything is written, you can't reverse that. अब वो मास्किंग था जो चाइल्ड साइकोलॉजिस्ट एजुकेशन साइकोलॉजिस्ट उनकी असेसमेंट थी that time उसका बिहेवियर डिफरेंट होगा क्योंकि वो क्लास में बिग इन्वायरमेंट में बैठा था, लेकिन उस मास्किंग को हम कैसे स्कूल कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करता है क्योंकि जैसे वो वर्ड तो है
जी नहीं बिल्कुल. So obviously schools में different systems होते हैं बच्चे को आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए, और I go back to सबसे बड़ी बात है कि ये है कि classroom teacher का relationship बच्चे के साथ, क्योंकि the teacher has to get to know every single child. वही सिस्टम होता है बच्चों को आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए. मिसाल के तौर पे हमारे स्कूल में और हर एक स्कूल में ये सिस्टम होगा, स्पेशली हाई स्कूल में एक रेफरल सिस्टम होता है जो, और अगर टीचर्स देखते हैं कि किसी बच्चे के साथ कोई डिफिकल्टी है या फॉर एग्जांपल you're talking about ADHD, concentration, running out of time, hyperactivity, इस तरह की चीज़ें हैं, वो टीचर को आइडेंटिफाई करनी चाहिए. इट्स नॉट ईजी, और मैं बहुत ऑनेस्टली बात कर रही हूँ आपके साथ कि बच्चे मिस हो जाते हैं मास्किंग की वजह से. तो मास्किंग क्यों करते हैं, कैसे करते हैं, टीचर्स क्यों नहीं समटाइम्स रियलाइज करते हैं, क्योंकि it's difficult for children, मगर some children can look at different ways of copying, and they can look at strategies कि ये मेरा साथ वाला बच्चा इस तरह कर रहा है, ठीक है मैं ऐसे कर लेती हूँ, I don't have to then ask for help. What children develop, it depends on personalities I think as well, children develop a way of being able to cover sometimes, and that's why sometimes children get missed in the system. But the most important relationship is the child and the teacher, and if the teachers have the right training and can identify the need and they notice things, वो फिर हमें बता देते हैं inclusion वाले department पे, तो उसी लिहाज से फिर वो assessment शुरू हो जाती है. It's not easy, you know, I'm being very honest when I say to you कि कहीं बच्चे miss हो जाते हैं, but the important thing is कि जैसे वो identify होते हैं उसके बाद क्या होता है, and that support should then be in place.
Identifying. I think that is the hardest part, is being able to identify. So do we need an individual, a teacher within the system, CMA, who has special training that they can go around classes and identify that this child is just being naughty or this child has got some extra needs, and then to be able to rectify that and have some sort of strategy put in place, because most of us are not trained teachers, we're just parents.
But you're not just parents, you do an amazing job.
Thank you. But just knowing that, I think in all the years, it's coming up to about 20 years at CMA, I've only had 2 parents who come forward to sort of say, my child has a problem. And then knowing that, having that little bit of information has allowed me to help in a positive way.
Yeah, of course.
And I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I want, for me as an individual, I think every teacher and every parent wants the best for their child.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would go that extra mile if I know this child has a problem. I know the strategy as well, and to be able to do the best for that child.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely take on board what you're saying, and my advice would be that on admission, that there's an admissions process within any kind of, whether it's another site, it's another organisation, there's an admissions process, and as part of that admissions process, whoever the person in charge is, has basic things that they're asking the parent in terms of additional needs, and they explain the reasons why. They explain that you're an inclusive organisation and you want to make sure that you have all the information on the children so that you can meet their needs in the classroom. That's a very basic really, and if that's the kind of system is in place, then it allows, I suppose, the person in charge to then, you might not necessarily be identifying a need because you don't have that expertise, but if you're broaching it with a parent in a way that they feel confident in communicating that to you, then that's the first hurdle to overcome, isn't it? And then you will have in your classes, you will know who those children are, and then you will be able to start to, like you say, accommodate, adapt, to go the extra mile. So that would be my advice. And as teachers, you know, I'm sure you have regular meetings with whoever's in charge. Perhaps that kind of conversation.
That point.
Your child has special needs, please let us know.
Yeah.
But again, parents are shy or they don't believe it.
But you know,
And even if you do confront a parent and sort of say, we pick up on something,
Again, what I would say, because it's no different in schools. Sometimes in schools we identify a need, and we have to approach parents. We have to make phone calls or invite parents into meetings to say, look, you know, we've noticed this. A teacher has noticed, like yourself, a teacher has noticed this about your child in the classroom. A couple of other teachers are saying the same thing. We've spoken to your daughter, son. We do feel that we'd like to support them. We'd like to kind of do further assessments or put further support in place. Sometimes, yes, you might get a parent saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with my child. But again, I suppose it's just it's about building those relationships, being more open, being more explicit. I think, like you said, what you're doing, you know, those sessions for parents of children with additional needs is brilliant, because you're being more explicit, and perhaps as an organisation you need to be more explicit about it so parents don't feel that they have to hide it. But as a teacher, what I would say is, if you've noticed a need, be persistent. Like I've said about parents, be persistent in getting your support. As a teacher, be persistent, give feedback at the end of each session, and kind of say, well, today this is what child A or B achieved, these are the difficulties that they had, this is what we did to try and kind of help it. Be persistent, and maybe then parents will feel a little bit more confident. And I think with parents, and you think about yourselves as parents, and if you've ever had interactions with school, the best starting point is always the strengths and the positives. So share the positives, and then kind of say, also at the same time, I've noticed that. It's those relationships, isn't it? But Galar, I think you should put it on your agenda for your next meeting.
Girls, तो माशाल्लाह जो दूसरे बच्चे हैं उनकी स्कूल कॉलेजेस में मुझे कंप्लेन हो सकती है, इसके स्कूल से हमें कभी कंप्लेन नहीं होती. They have given the best support.
Really good to hear.
And she used to be very hyper. She's very calm now. तो ये sometimes ना लोगों को explain करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. Please psychotherapy ना करें, please advices ना दें, because you know we have a professional team behind the child who is.
I think UWGs are discussed earlier, unfortunately. In any community, you hope that people are always ready to kind of advise their career. Sometimes they'll get there with the best will, with the best intentions, but obviously as a parent, आपकी तरह जिसने struggle किया अपनी बच्चे के लिए, support लेने के लिए, or to have it accepted as well, it becomes very difficult. I think शायद आपने miss किया कि मैंने पहले क्या कहा था, for parents for a child who has special educational needs and disabilities, particularly with a diagnosis of perhaps autism, it's difficult. It's a difficult journey, and you know, you are a shining example of, you know, being able to be vocal about it. This is what we need.
Sometimes I used to be on my own, because my husband used to travel for his job like almost every week, 3 days a week before COVID. COVID के बाद he's working from home most of the time. तो लेकिन you know, I'm born and raised in a country. वहाँ पे मतलब मैं किसी को disrespect नहीं कर रही, and I'm not targeting a community. लेकिन हमारे पास तो ये होता था ना कि बच्चा कंप्यूटर में चल नहीं पा रहा, लेकिन इसको 9th में कंप्यूटर ही लेना है क्योंकि ये कंप्यूटर का ज़माना है. तो people generally they don't have the understanding कि वो समझते हैं बच्चा pretend कर रहा है, या lazy है, या करना नहीं चाहता, या इसके और इंटरेस्ट हैं. We believe, या शायद यहाँ रहकर हमें कहना आसान है कि बच्चा जो भी काम करना चाहता है, as far as it's not haram, just let them do it. लेकिन back home शायद ये practically it's not.
The time has changed now. There is a lot of because I'm moving soon, so before I go there, I have all the searches. There's a lot of organization on their self. Don't rely on the government. So NGOs and their PhD and expertise from here working on autism and ADHD. Because with my own son, my husband every time, still now, he's quite changed now. ये तो मैं भी करता था। ये मैं क्लास में पेन फेंकता था, मैंने टीचर पे इंक डाल दी थी। सो ये अभी भी मेंटालिटी है, लेकिन आपकी जैसे बच्चा है माशाल्लाह, आप उसको पॉजिटिव भी दें। जब लोग मशवरा देते हैं, मे बी दे केयर फॉर यू, इसको अपनी स्ट्रेंथ बनाएं, वीकनेस नहीं। जहाँ पे वीकनेस,
सॉरी मैं आपकी बात कर रही हूँ, बट आई ऑलवेज टेल हिम कि भाई अगर कोई हेल्प करना चाहे तो व्हाई डोंट यू कम एंड हेल्प मी प्रैक्टिकली।
हाँ,
मतलब you are not an expert and you just like annoying the other person who's already struggling.
I'm a parent, लेकिन मेरा 20 years में इस कंट्री में रह के इतना एक्सपीरियंस है अबाउट वर्किंग विद द साउथ एशियन विमेंस, मिडिल ईस्ट और बच्चों का। जब भी मैं कहीं जाती हूँ तो वो नॉलेज को देख के दे थिंक मे बी हम एक्सपर्ट, कोई कोर्स किया हुआ है या कुछ, लेकिन कभी कभी पेरेंट्स भी पूरे साइकोलॉजिस्ट और एक्सपर्ट बन जाते हैं। लेकिन प्रोफेशनल एडवाइस आपको जब भी आप जैसे आप कहीं जाते हैं तो जैसे फ्रेंड्स भी होते हैं ना, दिस फ्रेंड इज हियर टू लिसन टू मी, फिर आप पूछते हैं कि इसे मैं मशवरा दूं कि सिर्फ सुनती रहूं। तो ऐसे कभी पेरेंट्स को भी ओपन अप होना पड़ता है, वरना
I have to say that in my experience, all the parents that I've worked with, जिनके बच्चों की कुछ difficulties there, had to take what they are saying to build on, because they do know and they are right. I'm a very experienced teacher who's been in education for a long time. Yes, I've got expertise in special educational needs and disabilities, but parents, you know, more power to the parents in that respect, because like I keep on saying, you know your child, they are right, they know what works for their child, they know what support they need. So this is why this is so empowering, and to hear your voice, to hear the sister's voice at the back as well. It's really, you know, it's not easy to speak out, and we need more and more of it in our community.
Yeah, I prefer to speak out because it's better than you can get help as well, and support and people. Some people obviously understand because a lot of people are going through this situation, the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The more people speak out and support each other, the more forums like this we facilitate really across our communities, I think the better it is for not just for these generations but for future generations as well. I'm just welcome.
जी मेरा भांजा है पाकिस्तान में। जी मुझे बल्कि आपकी हेल्प चाहिए। जी तो मेरा भांजा है पाकिस्तान में, वो 25 का हो गया अभी। जब मैंने उसको फर्स्ट टाइम देखा था तो वो 4 साल का था, तो मुझे वो डिफरेंट लगा था दूसरे बच्चों से। तो मैंने उनको बताया अपनी बहन को कि ये थोड़ा सा इसकी तरफ ध्यान दो। उन्होंने मेरी बात नहीं मानी पहले ना, कि नहीं ये सिर्फ शरारती है, ये ऐसे है ये, तो लेकिन वो ऑटिज्म का शिकार है। तो अब वो 25 का हो गया, जैसे जैसे वो बड़ा हुआ ना तो उसका बिहेवियर डिफरेंट हुआ, तो फिर पता चला बहुत से लोग हैं जो हेल्प भी करते हैं, लेकिन हेल्प भी ऐसे तरीके से, कोई तो ज़्यादातर मेरी बहन जो है बेचारी परेशान होती है, खुद भी डिप्रेशन में जा रही है, क्यों लोग कह देते हैं कि इन्होंने उसकी ना सही तरह से परवरिश नहीं की, सही तरह से देखा नहीं, बच्चे के ऊपर टाइम नहीं दिया, ये नहीं किया वो नहीं किया। मैं जाती हूँ, मैं देखती हूँ ना उसको, तो उसके साथ सही तरह से जब बात करते हैं तो वो बात इतनी अच्छी करता है, इतनी समझदार बच्चों है, समटाइम चीज़ें रिपीट करता है, हर वक्त चाहता है कि ना घर पे मेला लगा रहे, लोग इर्द गिर्द हो, टेंशन चाहिए होती है उसको। कई दफ़ा अपने ही जो बहन भाई हैं उसके साथ फिर मजाक उड़ाते हैं, बातें करते हैं, मज़े लेते हैं करने के लिए, बातें करने के लिए। जब वो ओवर हो जाता है फिर क्या देते हैं, इसको तमीज़ नहीं, सिखाया नहीं है कुछ। तो ये चीज़ें पेरेंट्स के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा मुश्किल है।
देखिए कुछ टर्म्स जो होती हैं ना, ट्रिगर, मेल्टडाउन, तो लोगों ने सुनी नहीं है। यू नो पाकिस्तान में जैसे मेरी एक फ्रेंड कहती है कि मामू से कि इस पे अल्लाह का फजल इसलिए है क्योंकि ये लोग ऑटिज्म वाले लोगों को, बूढ़ों को, बच्चों को कभी हमें स्कूल्स में ये एजुकेशन दी ही नहीं, कभी हमने कभी सीखा ही नहीं, हमें पता ही नहीं। यानी कि मैंने पाकिस्तान में मैंने मास्टर्स किया बायोलॉजी में, मैंने ऑटिज्म का लफ्ज़ पाकिस्तान में कभी नहीं सुना, और ये चीज़ मैंने एक MBBS डॉक्टर से सुना है कि मैंने ये लफ्ज़ पाकिस्तान में कभी सुना ही नहीं। And I couldn't believe ये कैसे हो सकता है, मुझे नहीं सुना, क्या मैंने कभी भी नहीं सुना। तो अब इसलिए मैं कहती हूँ कि लोग शायद बच्चे ये कर जाते हैं, लोग ये कर जाते हैं, उनको ट्रेनिंग नहीं दी गई शुरू से, they don't know, उनको टर्म्स का पता ही नहीं। जब मैंने इसको पढ़ना शुरू किया तो मुझे पता चला जो 4 and 5 बेसिक सिम्टम्स एक्चुअली क्या है पंजों के बंद करना या जो भी चीज़ है वो लोगों को पता ही नहीं होता, तो आप किसको ब्लेम करें?
Okay, we can take just one last question and then we need to wrap up. Thank you.
उसके ना ऑटिस्टिक हैं, तो वो एक तो पंजों पे चलता है, सही तरह से चल नहीं सकता, वो अपनी बात भी नहीं सही एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर सकता। भी वो 12 साल का हो गया, वो फैसलाबाद में रहते हैं, बड़ा शहर है, वो लाहौर में लेके गई उसको, बहुत कुछ किया, लेकिन वो इतने पैसे मांगते हैं ना 35,000 उसको सिर्फ ये असेसमेंट के लिए दिया, और 2 दिन 1 हफ्ता वहाँ रहना, जिसका वहाँ घर नहीं है वो क्या करे, वो 1 हफ्ता कैसे रहे? फैसलाबाद से 2 बच्चों को लेकर जाना कितना मुश्किल है। तो उसके लिए वो मुझे कहती रहती है कि कोई मुझे जैसे ही कुछ पता चले ना तो उसको मैं कोई ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज हो या कुछ हो तो मैं उसको भेजती रहती हूँ। अभी आप टीचर हैं तो आपसे मैं लूँगी कोई अगर वो उसके लिए अपने बच्चों के लिए कुछ कर सके, ऑनलाइन कोई कोर्स कर ले या कुछ ऐसे कर ले, बल्कि उसको ना यूज़ किया उन्होंने कि तुम इधर आ जाओ, तो जैसे ही वो पीछे हट रही थी ना बच्चों से, तो वो जो वहाँ काम करने वाली है ना वो बच्चों को डांटती हैं, ये तो मानता ही नहीं है, ये तो खड़ा ही नहीं होता, ये सीधा खड़ा हो, ऐसे जैसे ही आप नज़रों से दूर होते हो ना तो वो ये लैंग्वेज बोलती हैं बच्चों के साथ। वहाँ खुदा खौफी या खुदा तरसी वाली कोई बात नहीं है। फिर उसको कहा कि ये जो खिलौने या जो भी चीज़ें हैं ना, इसके रिसोर्सेज हैं जो हम इसको टीच करेंगे या कुछ करेंगे, वो तुम अपने पैसों से लेकर आओ।
इस मशवरा देना मुश्किल है, मगर इन्होंने भी कहा कि ऑब्वियसली पाकिस्तान में आप आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जी आ रही आहिस्ता आहिस्ता। मैं फिर बाद में बात करूँगी आपको कोर्सेज वगैरह जब वो कोई है मेरे ज़हन में तो फिर आपको मशवरा दे सकती हूँ।
उनकी हेल्प हो जाए।
ठीक है, इंशाल्लाह। ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन।
Thank you so much, Sofia ji, for a brilliant session, very informative, very useful.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming also, accepting the offer. Not the offer, but accepting the invite to come and deliver this session. So it's been really good. So I hope you all enjoyed it.